Hi, I'm Shelley, the Peace Oracle, and this month I'm going to do a little bit of a different format. I'm I have limited time at this moment at the end of the month, and so I'm not going to do any editing, and I'm not going to do my normal format of doing a fast pull of each of the messages after I've already pulled them. So, unhinged, uncut. We'll see what kind of fool I can make of myself. We'll see. Um, so anyway, I'm gonna get started. I Before I get started though, I was kind of playing around with my camera and I was noticing that when I come up close, it gets darker behind me. And when I come back, it gets a little lighter. And I was thinking about the perspective of that and the cloudiness versus the perspective. And I feel like when we are focused on the minutia, it's like that cloudiness is happening in the, focus on the details. And then when we can step back, then more light comes in and we're less cloudy, we're less focused on our limited view. And so I thought I would share that for anyone that needs to hear that. I feel like I kind of needed to hear that. I think that it's very easy in in this moment in the history of our world to get caught up in the minutia, and it's a lot harder to take the broader, higher perspective of unity and love, which is what I strive for and am, challenged sometimes every day. And grateful for my tools, grateful for Oracle, grateful for art and so many things. And it's also really hard. And that's why I want to do these Peace Oracle videos. That's my highest intention, is to essentially be a vessel of messages that need to come through to help people walk the path of peace in this world, because our world is very challenged, very unhealthy. There are people suffering just everywhere. And I don't need to wax on about it. You know what you know, and we all know what's going on. So I wish to bring peace. I hope that this reading serves you, and you'll get to see a little bit of more of my natural process if that's interesting to you. If you're a new viewer, welcome. Thank you for checking out this video. I'll get to it. And if you check out the old videos, then you'll see how it's a little bit different. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull 4 cards. One card is going to be for mental health, one for emotional health, one for physical health, and one for spiritual health. And when I pull the cards, I am a very visual person. So when I first started pulling cards, I felt the card with my hands. I'm going like this. It was a feeling, kind of like a lock being put into a key of the idea that needed to be talked about in order for healing to happen or start. So now I get a visualization of a number when I'm pulling the card. So I'll tell you that number, and if you're into numerology, you can think about that aspect of it. If you're not, you can ignore that aspect of it. And I have much more knowledge of Oracle than numerology. I find numerology really interesting, and I'll share, some tidbits just off the cuff. When I do the normal videos, I really take some time to pair the concepts. They're simple messages, but anyway, let's get on to it. So I'm going to be using the first deck for our emotional health, and I've pre-shuffled. Just going to give it a little bit of a resort for our highest good. This is our deck, viewers of the Peace Oracle. For our highest good and highest good of all, please show us what is our healthiest path? What is our healthiest tool to having as much mental peace as possible in April 2025? Shuffling around, it's either 14 or 41. It's 41. All right, so be patient with me, Linn. Okay, I'm going to recount. Okay, perfect. Okay, so flying, what a sweet image. Okay, so it's not coming out clear because I have a little bit of a distance filter on. So I will, well, I'm not going to do any editing. So I'm not sure how I can get that a little clearer. There's a beautiful, playful unicorn that's flying in the sky and what looks like a labyrinth underneath. So this is another message about perspective. And the numerology is a 4 and a 1, which is 5, and 5 generally represents either chaos or opportunity. It's a transitional number. It's stable. We have that grounding of the 4, and some people find that it's a very spiritual number with, coming into pyramid structures and the pentacle and other things like that that represent ascension, the divine feminine, things like that. So, what I'm getting out of this just off the bat is that we need to really, with the labyrinth underneath us, that is mystery. That's not having the map, not knowing the way out, not having the key, not having the solution. There's a mystery, there's confusion, there's, just what's happening in the world and a lot of our lives individually. Like there's a lot going on. So flying above it is that perspective piece for mental health. Go into that higher perspective. It's kind of exciting to me that I was, talking about this and then this card. And also with the card, the I wish I could give you a clearer view of it, but the card, the flying unicorn has these colorful streamers and it's very playful. It looks almost like a child's toy or a pinata or something like that. And so it's not only getting that higher perspective above the mystery, but having playfulness and really maybe not taking the world too seriously. It's kind of weird to say that because there's so many serious, horrible, just horrific things happening in the world today. And so try it. Let's try it out. I don't know how it's going to feel. Look at the world through the eyes of a clown. Human nature. That's what it makes me think of is like the follies of man. We're so intelligent and we've come so far in technology and we still are so barbaric and so flawed and so unhealthy in so many ways um and so it is the human condition to just mess up a lot and hopefully we can laugh about some of it. Some of it is funny, not a lot of it. But if we can bring a little bit of levity and perspective, then maybe we can have a more lighthearted view of humans, man. Something like that. Okay, let's go on to emotional health. And what I'll do after I've pulled all the cards is I will give kind of an overview without talking your ear off. Maybe you want me to talk your ear off. Who knows? I don't get a lot of comments so far on this channel. It's a relatively new channel. And so if you have suggestions of things that you'd like to see, if you have feedback of things that you like or don't like, let me know. I am very, my intention, like I said, is to be a vessel of peace. So I want to know who I'm talking to. I want to know who's on the other end. I want to know who you are, and I want to be able to serve you. You know, how are you compromised in your peace? Tell me. How could we formulate and customize these readings to this audience? I want to serve you. Let me know how I can. Okay, emotional peace. This is our deck. For our highest good and highest good of all, please show us what is our healthiest tool to have as many moments of of emotional peace as possible. Heartfelt, feeling, emotional, love tone, loving emotional peace. Okay, strong 10. Okay, so right off the bat, that can, as far as the numerology goes, that can uh, point towards something being the beginning or the ending of a cycle. It could be a new beginning, fresh idea. It could be something where you are taking some kind of adventure or new chapter. A lot of the astrology around this eclipse season is we had an eclipse on the full moon and for the new moon coming up. So it's a lot of big energy. And some of the astrologers are talking about how this is not only a new point in life, it's not even a new chapter, it's a new book. We have to kind of throw out the old books. Maybe that resonates with you. Okay, so what's the card? Let's see, what is it? Knowing without knowing. And this is whoop, on the floor. It's an abstract image. Let's see. I'm in a tight space. Can't get it very easily. Just gonna let it go. Okay. So, knowing without knowing. That is talking about our intuition. That is about using that sense for our emotional health. So, paired with if we're pairing the numerology and the oracle meaning, then we want to really start on a new chapter, a new book, a new way of being, where we are really, really taking into account our intuitive intelligence, our gut instincts, our intuition. I'm going for my third eye, but that's for me when I'm feeling like I'm having an intuitive hit, generally it's more in the gut area. If you're into chakra healing and that school of thought, then you're going to think third eye. And it's really important to be able to engage in this intuitive sense. And if you're here, you're already interested, right? So if you were in front of me and I was giving you a personal reading, what I do fairly often, not all the time, but fairly often, I will ask, once the cards are laid out, what is your intuitive hit? Because I've been doing this for a really long time. I know a lot about it, know a lot about about the symbology in different decks, and especially the ones that I use. But even if I've known someone very intimately for many, many years, I will not have the same perspective or guess at the perspective that you might have, taking into account all of your experiences and all of the different ways that you work and shine and function. So if you are thinking about, or okay, I don't know why I started that way, but you're already interested in intuition. You're here. And I'm flattered and honored that you're listening to me. And if you've made it that far, even better. Or this far into the video, you know, grateful that you're still with me. What's more important is what you will feel and what comes to your mind and your gut. What passes through your heart and just absolutely sings when you think about it. That could be considered an intuitive hit. And intuition sometimes gets really confused with anxiety. And when we are out in the world, we are more prone to having fears come up and just having little anxiety things happen. And so it's often hard to distinguish when we're out and about and essentially in beta functioning where our brains are turned on. We're not meditating, right? And we're not doing a walking meditation. We are fully 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 expressing and engaged in the world. And so when we come home, and if you have a meditation practice, or if you have a practice, or just, a habit where you just kind of sit and process, think about your day, think about whatever. Everyone has their own kind of way of processing. If you have moments like that where there's already a rhythm involved in your contemplation of your life and, kind of, you may not think about it that way. You may think you're sitting and stressing, you know. But either way, if you have some habits around when you're essentially evaluating your life, then it's really nice to be able to sit into a meditative state, which can be achieved through breathing and present mind awareness, focus on the breath, and some essentially basic meditation practices. It can also be achieved by doing something creative. I'm a certified therapeutic arts coach and an art teacher and a obsessive artist for my life up until now. So I'm a huge proponent of using creativity to turn on the alpha brain waves. If if you're thinking, oh well, I'm musical, maybe it's different with art. It is a little bit different. Both of them are physical, so it's not like you're completely in alpha. You are doing some physical functioning. You're having some beta stuff happen, but you're increasing the amount of alpha brain waves when you're doing something creative, especially when you're doing something not focused on any kind of specific product or pressure. So if you're scribbling or if you're just noodling around on the guitar or playing around on the piano, something like that where you can stay as much in the abstract as possible. You can absolutely achieve like uh, very, very deep flow and alpha states through very detailed representational painting. I mean, honestly, I have had multiple times. It hasn't happened a lot, but there have been very significant experiences I've had when painting when I disappear. And like the most recent time it happened was when I was in another location where I lived and I was in my studio there and I was painting, I was standing at my easel and, painting away. And then I woke up a little while later, standing with my hand was on my chest because I would have been painting with my right hand. My hand was on my chest at my heart level, and I was painting, and some of the painting had been completed, and I didn't remember doing it. And I didn't consciously put my hand on my heart. And to me, I feel like that is being either deep in flow or channeling or something. So it's fascinating. I'm getting all swimmy. Coming back. Okay. So anyway, creative practice really helps getting into the alpha state and being able to check in with your intuition. That's the whole point. Anything that helps you get into that intuitive state. Maybe you like to sit and stare at candles, or, maybe you like to journal or pull cards or do something, maybe you like to sit on the beach and, uh, you know, uh, why can I not think of this word? Anyway, just flow, have your hand and fingers flow through the water and just bring about relaxation. Relaxation and intuition really go hand in hand, and it's hard when we are stressed out to tap into our intuition. And sometimes that sometimes messages that are actually our intuition um, present as anxiety. So sometimes it can just get super confusing. And if you are stressed out, you're not going to be thinking as clearly. So anything that you can do to regulate your stress hormones, uh, most specifically cortisol and dopamine, through meditation or artistic practice, the neuroscience and the physiological pathway is very similar. You essentially, you even can just scribble, which is one of the main things that I teach as far as like the basics and the staples. It's a basic, but it's not a 101 thing that you don't do anymore. Scribbling, I feel like, is super important. I keep looking here because I have my lighting a little bit different, and it's like I'm seeing, I don't know, the impression of a figure. Anyway, my eyes are playing tricks on me. Or maybe we have a visitor. Yes. I'm focused on you, so I'm not, you know. Anyway, so getting back to our intuition is really important. I've, given you maybe some things to think about, but I think it's just really important to think about what is happening in your life right now that's already setting you up to have those messages come through, or maybe you already are, maybe you already have a practice, or maybe you're already very comfortable around your intuition. So the next piece is trust. That's the other point of the card. The wording on the card is knowing without knowing. And so that is, trust is an inherent part of that. If we know something, then we trust that knowledge. So it's part of it to tap into the intuition. It's another thing to trust it. It's another thing to act on it. So develop this. There's a there's a woman named Teal Swan who I have an incredible amount of admiration and respect for, and she talks about keeping a synchronicity journal where you can write down the intuitive hits you get or things lining up. I think she uses it more with manifestation, but I think that you could absolutely adapt it to being focused on your intuition, where you're just, maybe you have an intuitive hit, maybe you write it down with a question mark. Is this true? And then you can kind of feel into that. And maybe, well, I think I'm talking a lot about this specific subject, but maybe there are some things where you can pair hits with say maybe you are out in the world and you get an intuitive hit, you come home and you meditate about it so that you can develop it and get more information. And of course, more information could come in different ways. Maybe if you do have a meditative practice, just breath work sometimes can allow messages to come through. If you have an insight meditation practice, we can get things a little bit more specific, sometimes a little faster because we're going through specific guided prompts to get you into a place where essentially your subconscious and some of the more abstract processing inside you can have a chance to shine. So I can help you with that if you need help. I've gone to an energy healing and meditation school for since 2017, and I offer meditation lessons on my website, shelleyirish.com. So I'll put a link in there. Okay. So start a new relationship with your intuition. That's the main message for this card. Um, pairing the numerology. We're at the ending and beginning of a cycle. Start the cycle of trusting and acting and developing in whatever, ratio that you particularly need, and what would help you the most. Okay. Let go of distrust. Let that be the last of the cycle of that. Okay. Physical peace. We're going to pull from the Native Spirit card. I haven't talked about the decks. I'll put that in the description. Okay. This is our deck. For our highest good and highest good of all, please show us what is our healthiest tool to have as many moments of physical peace as possible. Okay, that's 14. 2. Okay, and we're in a 5 number again, so it's going to be chaos and opportunity. And what did we pull? Warrior of the Heart. Oh, this is so good. So with physical peace, many times our emotional health can really influence our physical peace, our physicality, our disease, our being prone to disease. And the Warrior of the Heart card, it's just such a beautiful card. It's about being strong and gentle. And I feel like that really ties into the numerology of chaos and opportunity. Um, with all of the physical things that are going on in the world, war, disparity, drama of all kinds, and everything in our personal lives, in our physical peace, that I feel like that also encompasses a very emotional component because it's our tribe, it's our family, it's everything, all of our physical connection. We are a collective society. We need each other as humans. So I know that there's a lot of people who are very independent, but as a species, we are very dependent on each other. And so with physical peace, our tribe is really important. Our job is really important. Our ability, maybe you don't work, maybe you have another way to provide for yourself, but your way of providing for yourself, if you don't work, is has to do with the physical aspect of money and your physical survival, being able to physically survive through the resources of what you need to survive. You know, food, shelter, all of that. So when I talk about physical peace, I'm talking about all aspects of survival, physical and emotional survival, essentially. So warrior of the heart, that northern bear, that white bear, random fact, polar bears are all of polar bears have black skin and all of their hair is see-through and they have essentially no pigment, but there's so many of them collected together that they appear white. I've always just thought that was really interesting and cool ever since I learned that. So here we are. Not the kind of crazy unhinged thing that you might have maybe hoped for. Sorry to disappoint. Um, but anyway, warrior of the heart, the polar bear. The archetype of the bear in this, I feel like is just perfect. We've got the nurturing aspect of the bear, and then we have the very strong, ruthless part of the bear. So, what you want to do in these moments of questioning, chaos, fear, fear is a huge one right now. Even people who won't admit it, I think, are afraid. And so having that courage of the bear is really lovely. And being able to just really tap into that soft strength. I go to the idea of the mother bear because I feel like that really um, ties in the gentleness and the strength of being a warrior of the heart. When you hear those words, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that you are a warrior for peace, that you will fight for peace, that you will do certain things for peace? Maybe you, I don't know. There's a million things. I felt like I was going to babble a lot if I kept going on that tangent. So, what kind of warrior of the heart are you? What's your goal? If you had if you're going into whatever war that you're a part of right now, what's that symbol on your regalia? Is it peace? Is it fire for passion? Is it, I mean, since you're watching a peace oracle video, I'm assuming that it's not about violence. Maybe it is. Maybe you feel the path to peace is being violent so that there can be a peaceful resolve. Maybe that's your belief. And I'm not I'm not here to judge that belief. All I'm asking you to do is formulate that belief. What is your intention for being a warrior of the heart? And maybe you don't consider yourself a warrior of the heart. Maybe you could just kind of put yourself into your imagination land. I'm not trying to, be facetious in any way because I go to imagination land every day. I work with my inner child as often as I can, mostly every day. And I feel like using the power of the mind is one of the most important things and one of the most valuable, amazing tools that we have. So if you can spend some time in your intuition and really think about what is worth fighting for to you and how do you fight? Do you fight with peace? What kind of weapons do you wage? Maybe your weapon is a kind word, things like that. Okay, let's go on. So, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not quite ready to go on. So, how does that relate to physical peace? I think the survival aspects are more so where you may have something very difficult to deal with, maybe at work or maybe in your home environment or in your super close relationships where you are kind of put to the test and you may need, in order to keep the harmony at work or keep the harmony at home or something like that, really engage that warrior of the heart energy. So that is how to relate it to the physical aspect of our piece. It's really important to stay strong and gentle, and again with the flying card, the mental piece, to really find that perspective. So in order to get to that warrior of the heart and to find your most basic pure intention, having that higher perspective and being a little bit playful about it. I'm kind of going back to that. I feel like that's resonating, at least for me, on both of those, where I feel like that could be some really nice kind of lighthearted, um, that could be a nice lighthearted way to kind of look at it if we get so serious, you know. I do. All right, so spiritual peace. This is our deck for our highest good and highest good of all. Please show us what is our healthiest tool for spiritual peace this month, April 2025. It's either a 1 or an 11. What do you think it is? A good way to tap into your intuition. All right, it's clearing up as a 1. Okay, take your time. Spiritual peace, take your time. Okay, there's an obvious message to this card. Don't rush. Engage in what you need to engage in and don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. And there's another aspect. I've had this deck for many, many years, and another aspect that I have come to understand from it, that's based on how I've experienced its message, is that we need to take our time, that we need to seize our time. And one of my spiritual teachers, his name is Ajahn Brahm. Never met him. He doesn't know who I am. Um, he puts out videos on YouTube. He's a Buddhist monk, and one of the things that I really love about some of the philosophies that he talks about is that the present is the most powerful thing that we can experience. The power of the present is the only point of power. The only way that you can have any power is in the present. And if you think about it, that's completely true, because we can learn from the past. That's a way that we can be powerful from what's happening in the past. We can prepare for the future, and that's wonderful. That's a way that we can have some power in the future. But what we are doing now, how we're thinking, our our entire state, our state of being, how we are interacting, everything, everything we're doing, how we're being, is the power of the world. And I truly believe that. And so if you can look at every moment, and this is not a pressure thing, but it's just a perspective thing, that we are so lucky to be alive. And as humans, oh my gosh, we are so lucky to be humans. And if you have access to the internet, whoa, We really take a lot for granted. Sometimes I feel like I'm a humble person, but sometimes I really am like, wow. And then I say something like that, and it just makes me sound just not how I feel. We Sometimes I really am surprised by what I take for granted. It's not every night that I I use a gratitude journal. That's been a huge thing for me in having a positive focus after a lot of trauma in my life. And not every day am I thinking about how grateful I am to have the food that I have. I mean, I work for it. I earn the money that buys my food. And but I have a home. I have access to warm water, clean, warm water. Oh my gosh. You know, sometimes warm water, it's this is overused, but it feels like a religious experience. Sometimes when I'm in the bath or essentially being held by warm water, it's I mean, it's probably coming back into that sanctity and safety and security and warm feeling of being in my mother's womb. But that is a level of wealth that many people do not have in this world, and many people have not had for so long in the history of humanity. And so I don't think about that stuff every day, and it humbles me when I kind of forget how privileged of a life that I have. It upsets me when I forget about those things, honestly. And And that's part of why I do what I do with the Peace Oracle and why I have such ambitious goals with my arts coaching, is because I really find it so important to be a person of peace and healing. That's my ultimate goal in this life. And so how I can tap into that power has sometimes been a mystery. And sometimes just by focusing in on the present and being able to shut off the outside world in deep states of meditation, I mean, other than making love, that has been the most bliss and ecstasy I have ever experienced. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but the present can be electric. And sometimes we do not want to be in the present. We don't even want to be in our bodies. We don't want to be in our minds. Sometimes it's very unsafe to be in our bodies. Sometimes it's very unsafe to be in our minds or our hearts or any aspect of ourselves that has been compromised, has been I mean, I want to use the word abused, but that's triggering. I say that in a very low level state, that there are just constant stressors and constant things that can eat away at us and make us not want to go in and not want to be present and deep. And so sometimes when we have a moment where we can be with ourselves or we can push something forward in a way that we feel very heartfelt around, sometimes it's easier to be distracted, to, scroll on social media or zone out on TV or get caught up in someone else's drama or whatever. And not saying it out of criticism because, I'm trying to rein myself in. Um, I get overstimulated, which is a little bit of a gift because I, I just can't spend that much time watching TV or scrolling, but I get real sucked into YouTube. That's uh, a lot of it's educational, so I'm gonna give myself a break. But anyway, the present is the most important point of power, the most powerful point of power. Get into the present. Take your time and let that time spread out. Maybe you need to sit and stare at the wall for 15 minutes before you do anything to start your day. And sometimes I make suggestions like that, and then I'm hearing the busy mother be like, that's impossible. And I get it as much as I can. And so give yourself, just try, just do your best. Give yourself some gentleness. Take your time. Elongate things. Slow down when you talk. Slow down when you walk. You know, don't rush through everything. Let yourself be. If you're into things like walking meditation, that can really help if you're feeling stressed out about a task or something like that. It can really, um, when we feel pressured and rushed, it's an interesting conundrum because if we feel like we don't have enough time, then we're not going to want to fill in more. Anything I suggest to you, you might just be like, I don't have time for that. You're already super busy. And I'm just feeling drawn to share something with you that has been a challenge in my life recently. It's got a little bit of a history to it. I had neck injuries and was bedbound for a time, had to retire from cake decorating, and which is I mean, I do a lot of things, but I was more focused on cake decorating and doing art and teaching art, but not not as I was doing both part time, but my main job was a cake decorator. So, and I was looking at my classes kind of more on the side, kind of more part time. And so I done a lot of healing and I was able to get a wonderful position teaching art. And then I became a certified therapeutic arts coach. So I've been doing a lot of healing through art for a long time, but I finally completed that certification. I don't know why I say finally, but completed that certification and then just had a lot more fuel behind the scientific backed aspect of my work because I get really nerdy and excited about that. And felt more confident, honestly, to put more out because I had that, just that little bit of extra training. Have a lot of, I guess I'm going to brag. I have an art therapist friend who was, just kind of listening to some of the things that I was doing in my classes before I went through my certification. She was like, that's just right out of an art therapy directive. And um, just, anyway, my heart's been in it real deeply for a long time. And just am so passionate about that. It's hard to talk about. So, not that hard to talk about, I guess. So, what am I trying to get at? I so I have a great part-time position teaching art, and I've been doing more of the therapeutic arts. I'm so used to saying the certified in front of that. It's silly. Anyway, doing more of the therapeutic arts as far as my classes go, and offering some really cool things to corporations. So if that piques your interest at all, get in touch with me and we can talk about it. I really want people in the corporate world to feel less like machines and be able to have some really lovely tools to be able to calm down and be more productive. So I had to, I lost my train of thought. I watched this lady who's, um, she essentially channels intuitive messages. And when she loses her train of thought, I think it's adorable. And now that I'm in this seat, it doesn't feel so adorable. I'm just going to try to come back to it. I know I was talking about my healing journey, but I don't remember why. Well, I don't want to take too much time. Take your time. Oh my goodness. Aha. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just start talking about it again and we'll see what happens. So anyway, it was some lovely learning. That's what I can talk about, and hopefully the intention can come back. But I was really challenged during that time because I felt like my life was falling apart and I had incredible anxiety about not being able to do cakes. And then it turned into some positive things, where I feel like what I'm doing now with the classes that I'm doing, I'm working with some compromised people with complications, health complications, um, mental health and physical, and it's an incredible learning experience, and it's very satisfying to be able to help people in the states that they come to me with. So I feel like, oh, that's what it was. Duh. Okay. So I have really wanted to feel well. The pain that I've dealt with is just incredible. And, it's to the point where, I mean, I'm not moving around a lot during this video, but you can't see my legs. I have to change position very often. I have to do certain things like, wear a back brace at work and take ice packs and things where pain management is just part of my life. And I was so isolated for so long during my injuries that I'm very, very hungry to have a more normal social life. And although I'm introverted, it's like I finally, okay, so this is kind of funny. So, we went through COVID and I was a cake decorator at the time. And I was considered an essential worker. And it was hilarious because a lot of people's carts were literally just carts of booze and cakes. People were just partying. I'm working. And which, I love doing cakes. I loved it. And but working in a grocery store during COVID, whoa, I don't like being in grocery stores anymore. I try to go to the fancy ones to, have it be a little bit better and buy, you whatever I want. Just kidding. So, been really wanting to feel well. And I had scheduled myself in a way where I was basically working like a well person. And I got to the point where, I'm having other symptoms crop up. So not only on top of the pain that I've been having, which by the way, I had two nerve burns on my neck, C5, 6, and 7, on both sides, 6 months apart, and that gave me an incredible amount of pain relief. So if you struggle with neck pain from a car accident or other type of injury, I highly recommend radio frequency ablation. That's been a game changer for me. So much so that I stopped getting the lidocaine shots in my muscles, which didn't do very much anyway. Um, anyway, so I was scheduling myself like a well person. A few months ago, the throbbing pain on my left side started to come back after, should know this a little bit better, after over a year, about a year, excuse me. Yeah, about a year after the nerve burn on my left hand side. So that is so anyway, the throbbing pain was coming back and um and it was going down my arm. I can't think as much when I think about my pain. It's like to me it's that um I mean you're hearing it. It's it's that much. Um so I so while that's happening, I was being silly essentially and pushing myself to have a well person schedule. And then I took on another student, another oil painting student in the evening. And I'm also a classically trained oil painter and I provide art lessons. So um, took on another student in the evenings, a dear friend, which was so awesome. She surprised me by, wanting to take art lessons from me and then decided on oils. So exciting. And so between my Sacred Art Circle class, which is an acrylic painting class that has to do with spiritual concepts and healing through art on a monthly basis through our painting projects and meditation and somatics. I do that on Monday nights. If you're interested, visit shelleyirish.com. And then on either Wednesday or Friday nights, I'm doing my evening lesson. And then I also clean in the evenings, or I staying structured on cleaning one night in the evening. And then I have a new very close friend. And so we've been wanting to hang out more. So I've been hanging out with her about one night a week. And so, um, so my schedule was getting a little bit rough where I was trying to go to sleep by midnight and have my quiet time be essentially from 10 to midnight because I have a really difficult time shutting off my mind and I take sleeping medication. Unfortunately, it's for nerve pain, but it helps me for sleep. Um, and so I have to take a sleeping medication anyway, but if my mind is too wound up, then that medication won't work. So I need to have quiet time in the evening and, getting done with a lesson or coming home from hanging out or, those kind of things were tripping me up. And so I would not sleep well, force myself to get up and look at my day like a well person. And it just I was just running myself into the ground. And I just got to the point where, it was a shift that wasn't some significant shift, but it felt significant and I hadn't just kind of got my mind around it yet. So, I have to be at my, my job out of the house twice a week. So I have to get up at a certain time on those mornings. But I have flexibility in the other times, I run my own business. So, and I don't have kids. So I have a lot of freedom in how I design my days. So I thought, well, on the days that I don't have, and I don't have a relaxation time in the evening, maybe my morning is my relaxation time. So I just switched it where I let myself sleep in more so that if I don't sleep well, it was like the first day I tried it, it was great because I wasn't able to get to sleep until 4 a.m. And then I finally was able to sleep. I had set my alarm for around 12-ish. And so I was able to get some decent sleep and then be able to still do my day. And I had an expectation around it where it wasn't like I um I was super disappointed and then had an expectation that I would be able to. It was a Monday, so I was teaching that night. So I would have loved to be able to have an 8-hour day before I teach, but that's just not realistic. And with the throbbing increasing and the just my physical discomfort amping up, I am not able to work for extended periods of time. And so I've just kind of been like, okay, I was trying to schedule myself as little work as possible in some ways, but then I had this mental expectation and I couldn't get around it. And so I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, body, you tell me, you know, you're telling me essentially by essentially not being able to physically get past 2 or 3 hours of work if I'm doing repetitive motion. I use my dictation mic and a lot of apps on my phone so that I don't have as much work that I need to do with my hands. And I learned how to use the mouse with my left hand. I haven't done that in a long time, but modified workstation, da da da. Um, anyway, so this is a long way of saying that there's things that we just have to kind of work with where I was looking at myself as kind of a 9 to 5 person, and I needed to shift that, just that expectation of myself. And when I'm talking about taking your time and having the present be the most important point of power, the most powerful force in the world is taking advantage of the present moment, setting yourself up in order to be able to take advantage of the present moment is huge. I was depleting myself. I was pushing my body. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from the accident is, and I always, it's so weird to be in this position where, like, I didn't cause the accident. And I always want to say that, but but it feels weird to kind of have it be a something to, it's like I can receive compassion because I didn't cause it. But if I did cause it and I had a horrible injury that, changed my life, then I still get the lessons, but maybe I wouldn't have the same compassion. Anyway, things that that I think that don't always share. There's the uncut. Uh, so one of the biggest lessons of the accident is learning how to listen to my body, to honor its limits, to really get in touch and understand more about how I work and not work in pain. I made a commitment to myself after all of this happened that I need to be supported. I need to be passionate about, my life, and I will not work in pain. And I've been working in pain. I've been pushing myself. And, it's almost 3 years since the accident. I want to be well. And it's really extremely frustrating to have the throbbing coming back and, having it be this long where I still am just what I I'm still doing what I feel like is kind of the bare minimum. But I got a lot of love in that bare minimum, and I have a lot of support in setting myself up to do well. I was making some mistakes. I wasn't listening. I wasn't honoring. But I was still doing my daily meditations and I'm still doing my energy work and doing my processing and doing all the things that help us be healthy. And so when you are taking your time, take your time, make your time count, not in a pressure way, but in a this is mine, my time, and make choices about your time. You know, it might have to do with boundary setting. It might have to do with some things that maybe you're very, very uncomfortable, but you got to take it. There's something that, I mean, my guess is that there's something that's going to be really important that happens on a spiritual level for you if you do take that time. Maybe it's an insight. Maybe it's a synchronized connection. Who knows? It could be anything. So I've talked a lot about each card. I don't feel like it would be super advantageous to talk too much more about them as a group, but I do want to say the main themes are to get that higher perspective and to really allow yourself to be playful, be very intentional, or as far as conflict. The mental and physical cards I pulled really have more to do with chaos and conflict. And so if you're dealing with chaos and conflict, get that higher perspective, be as playful as you can, be a flying unicorn. If that's, something that helps you kind of just be like, you are allowed to be a flying unicorn in your mind when things are shitty, when people are suffering. It's okay. If someone needs to hear that, I feel like it's important. It was an important thing for me to hear. Really helped me because I'm just a bleeding heart. Feel guilty for being happy when other people suffer. We need your happiness. The world needs your peace. The world needs your happiness. Don't feel guilty about it. Okay, so with chaos and conflict, higher perspective, playfulness, warrior of the heart. What do you fight for? What is important to you? What is your intention for certain situations? And then tap into your intuition. Trust your intuition and act on it. And then take your time. Take it. Okay. Collective readings are wonderful for finding common things to help us all. If this was helpful to you, thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you for watching this. And tell me, tell me about it if you feel like it. Um, if you want personalized guidance, which is always helpful, I find, even if it's affirming. Um, what I mean by that is sometimes we pull cards and you're like, oh, I knew it. That's an affirming card. And sometimes we pull cards that introduce some different ideas. Sometimes they can be challenging in the best and healthiest ways. And sometimes they can be very insightful and uplifting and inspiring. That's the goal. We, I talk, I talk with people about very specific things. So if you feel like you want a reading, think about what you would ask the invisible realms. If you could ask the great intelligence of the world one thing or 10 million things, what would you ask? That's kind of where I start. So if that's of interest to you, ask yourself first, what does the great invisible have to tell me? And then listen. And if you'd like my help with readings, with getting some messages to you, um, book it on peaceoracle.com. I'm going to have another nerve burn on March 31st. So if you're watching this on April 1st, would have happened yesterday. And so I'm based on the last ones, I believe I'm going to be having the worst part of the recovery from 1 to 2 weeks. So I'm going to clear out my schedule for the first 2 weeks of April and leave the last 2 weeks open. So um, if you'd like some support, happy to give it to you, but you will have to be a little bit patient with me. If you're having a really hard time, then email me, gallerysati@gmail.com, and just, I can let you know how I'm doing if I can get to a reading. I mean, I'm at home in my studio, so if I'm um, if I'm able to, I absolutely will. Um, yeah, anyway, I'll leave all this information in the description. And if you made it this far, congratulations! That's awesome. Thank you for listening to me. Take care. I hope that this week is this month is really lovely for you. And well, now that I'm thinking about it, I have to say it. Let's one of my old I used to take some spiritual classes in Colorado, and one of my old priestesses, she around Easter time, we were based in earth-centered spirituality, and so around this time of Easter, she was like, just remember where the eggs and the bunnies come from. And so we want to tap into that fertile energy of April. Egg, pure potential, bunny, fertility, active, still active. So just, um, I just love that. I think it's really important to delve beneath the surface and remember our roots. Anyway, thank you for listening. And I hope that you have a wonderful month. I hope that these messages have served you. And, if you're coming back to the video at the end of the month and there's something that, happened that you find interesting that you want to tell me about, I love hearing that kind of stuff. With the people that I do private readings for, that just, um, it doesn't surprise me anymore, but it's always satisfying, if that makes sense. So take care and just be good to yourself. You know yourself the best. Treat yourself. The world needs your health and your kindness and your peace.